UK uplands provide a multitude of functions and services that are essential to our daily life. Now that they are subject to an unprecedented range of forces, including climate change, it is vital to understand how Britain's hills will respond and adapt to future pressures.
I think the big things that are happening in our world as a whole, which is to do with climate change and to do with energy security and food security, will have huge ramifications for the uplands as they will for everywhere else.
Let's take food security as our example. Recent rises in food prices have made us all aware how important it is to ensure daily essentials are widely available and affordable long into the future. As a result, governments around the world, including our own in the UK, are increasingly interested in improving food security. This could mean changes in the uplands. If we want to become more self-sufficient in food, we will need to use more land, and we will need to manage the land we're already using more intensively.
Agriculture is a great concern about how that's going to change in the future and how we're going to sort of manage agricultural systems in the uplands.
If we began to increase the production of arable crops in the uplands, we could see many more sheep on the uplands than we do today, and in some places a mixture of sheep and cattle. We could also see far more significant changes in some upland areas. There are many parts of the country that were farmed in the past, and these areas could be used again to provide food. If we are committed to feeding ourselves, we may need to plough up and lime some of the UK's more suitable high ground to grow crops. The parts of the Peak District National Park that would be most suitable to grow crops today are shown on this map in black. And here we can see the same map estimating the suitable areas in the year 2030, suggesting that as the climate changes, it may be possible for us to cultivate much more land in the future than today. But providing more homegrown food in this way could come at a price. First of all, the extra grazing and cultivation could mean a lot less vegetation on Britain's hills. Future vegetation could be as little as 10% of the current biomass, due to intense grazing, ploughing and harvesting. This is important to consider because vegetation slows the rate at which rain reaches streams and rivers, and without it, much more water would reach our rivers much faster. As a result, this scenario could lead to an increased risk of flooding in towns and cities downstream.
Intensification of the land for the production of arable crops would also require the use of a greater amount of fertilisers. The colour of the water could potentially change and become darker due to an increase in carbon leaching from these soils.
And that then becomes an important problem which costs money to treat before it gets to our taps.
As well as this, if more water was running off the hills faster, more sediment would wash down our rivers, covering salmon spawning beds and clogging up reservoirs more quickly than ever. As part of this scenario, we could see many more livestock in the hills. This could change the ecological balance between the wild species of plants and animals in the area, many of which are internationally important. But perhaps one of the most significant consequences of this scenario would be the potential impact on the climate system. The peat soils in our uplands are the largest store of carbon in the country, holding more than all the carbon stored in the forests of Britain and France combined. If enough of this washed down our rivers and ended up in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, it could increase the effects of climate change, which in turn would lead to the warming up of the soil, which would release yet more carbon, a vicious cycle. With a growing population, the costs of intensified farming need to be weighed up against the benefits of feeding a growing population. It is enormously important that in addressing food production, we don't present problems for climate change. Not only do we need to produce as much food as possible, but we need to do it in a way that is economically productive and environmentally sustainable.